In the first section of the rhythm guitar style of Eldon Shamblin, we're going to take a look at his single note fills and single note lines. These are ideas that he would play in between the chord changes to connect them. These are all out of our common chord shapes up the neck that we kind of explored in the first part of this course. So example 1, we have our single triplet. This is going to sound like this. 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so what we have here is we're playing an A chord to a D chord. And we're connecting it really simply harmonically by going A to A7. So what we do here is we're playing A in the bass on the 6th string, major 7 in the 6th string, that's our G sharp, and then we're coming up to this A9 chord, anticipating playing out of this A7 shape. Right? And then here comes our single note line. And all that is working up the scale, C sharp, D, E, all within that shape. And then A flat, G, or 1, major 7, flat 7, to lead us to the D chord. And that would be resolving to the 3rd of the D from G to F sharp. Then you can finish the phrase on that chord, or we could keep going. So the big thing here is that leading of 8th notes to triplets, and then sliding down. So one more time we have or if you want to land on the 5, we've got either one works just fine. Alright, so example 2, let's take that triplet idea and let's double it. This is something you can hear all over his playing. We're just going to play 2 triplets in a row, and I'll do the fingering here in a second for you to break it down. There's a couple different ways in which we can do it. This is how this is going to sound. Same context, A, A7, go into the D. A 1, 2, 3, 4. A 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we're doing here is playing out of this A chord, same thing, just starting on the 3rd, the C sharp, going down to the major 7, going down to the flat 7, and then coming up and thinking of this shape connecting back into this shape. I'm jumping with my first finger here, and then I'm going to reach up with my 3rd, do the same triplet we did in the previous example, and then move down and do the same thing going from F sharp, F, E. Now you could go, if you want that fingering of it, I just like keeping everything on one string if it's chromatic. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just sliding like so. And then that lands you right into our D chord. So that's an example of putting 2 triplets back to back. And I like this one specifically because it connects this A7 to this A7 and still gets us back to here. So again, this is just an idea, example 1 and example 2, of taking something and building off of it. Let's now talk about using some chromatics in a descending fashion, just pure 8th notes. This is example 3. We're going to play from an A to an A. It's just as if we had a vamp of an A, or it was a really quick turnaround. This is something that we can use. It's also something we can use if it's a really quick 1, 5, 1, or even faster. So So let's take a look at this. We're going to start here with the E in the bass. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so what we have here is we're playing up the chord, and then we're taking the major 7 and walking down chromatically. And what you could think of as, this is just, all within the key of A, but it's also the third of the E. So that's why I could fit over that E change as well. The way I finger it, for the most 9% or 90% of the time, if it's fast, I typically will go. Again, trying to keep 3 fingers to a span of 3 frets. If it's slow, I might go and just use 1 finger to transition. Now, what you can do on this last one, land on the E or land on the A chord. Either one's going to work nicely. It works especially nicely if this next chord you're going to is an E chord. You could go right into your E there. So that's the one that you find him using a lot. And that also, as a side note, is a great Western swingism to use into the intro of a solo or some part of your solo. It's a great lead-in. So one more time through that, example 3, descending chromatic, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now example 4, we're going to do a descending line, but this time it's going down the scale. So we're going to act as if we're playing an E to an A. This could be a great example of an E7, like a 5 chord, going back to the A. So here's how it's going to sound. A 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, it's a really nice example, like all of these, of how we can just play really within one shape and have so much content to use to get to another chord. So we're starting off with just a normal E chord, then we're working down to the flat 7, then the C sharp, that's our 6th, and then we're visualizing that 3rd and working straight down from it. So the scale would be the 3rd, the 2nd, the 1, the flat 7, to the 3rd of the A. In the first course of this, I emphasize the great importance of getting all these kind of bass descending patterns down out of all of your shapes. And this is a perfect example of why it's so great to have that, because you can take really any note that you start on the chord and just work down it and have some kind of line that can resolve into another chord. So again, we're visualizing that 3rd of E. There's the G sharp, down to the F sharp, down to the E, down to the D, and here comes the resolution to A or your C sharp. So one more time, the descending scale, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, what goes down also has to go up, so we're going to talk about the ascending scale that you would use a lot. Again, we're using this E7 to A example, and it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're literally reversing it. It's great. You can, have more bang for your buck with these licks and these ideas if you go up and down. So we're taking the E, again moving it down to the D, moving it down to the C sharp, and then taking from the C sharp, so it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. And that can land you on the A or that A triad right there. So there are two ways you can think of this, and not to try and overcomplicate it, but if you know the E chord is the 5 of A, I don't even really think, oh, E major, or E dominant, or E mixolydian, or any of that stuff. I just think, oh, it's within A, so I'm free just to move right back up the pool of notes that's an A, because it's eventually going to get me to the A. And yes, there's ways in which you can kind of calculate that, the timing of it, but the best way is just to limit yourself, put on a vamp, and see how long it takes from certain notes. Typically, I'd recommend starting from the chord tones. So in this example, it was on the and of 2. We went C sharp, and then 1 and 2 and, right? Or in the rhythmic context of this, it would be 3 and 4 and 1. And that's starting on the flat 7. That's a chord tone of the E. So one more time, this E7 to A, the ascending scale, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, now let's go to this next one. We're going to talk about using some pentatonics. This is something that you can hear him typically use 8, 9 times out of 10 on the ends of phrases, or on tags, for example. So what we're doing here is just playing another 5 to 1 or E7 to A, and we're going to play out of a pentatonic box up here at the span of the 9 and 12 frets. So let me play it and I'll break it down. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we have here, we're playing out of this E shape, right? We're starting on the 3rd. Then in the part 1 of this course, we talked about how you can take the minor, right, in between E and E with G sharp in the bass, so that's the minor F sharp. We're just going down like the scale. It's all in the same key. So we have E with the G sharp, F sharp minor, then E in the bass, then back up to the 3rd, that's the G sharp, and then finishing into this A shape. So that's, and here comes our pentatonics, right? We've got this nice box, right? So we're sliding up to the 11th fret, that's the F sharp to the A, and then this is a common thing you would do, just bouncing off the C sharp, C, C sharp, it's a little half step thing, and then C sharp sliding up to E, then down to A to resolve it, or your A6 chord. So those are all like the kind of the pentatonic box ideas that you can apply to it. You might go, so this lick again, and then I'll do a couple variations off of it, would be like this. A 1, 2, 3, 4. Now a variation. Another variation. Just land on some kind of chord tone. The first time I landed on the E, second time I landed on an A, let's land on C sharp now. So that's just me now going up the scale. So all sorts of different little things you can do with that. And in this next section, we're going to take a look at some more ways of using that in San Antonio Rose. But we got one more. We're going to take it to a different area of the fretboard that typically uses itself nicely for pentatonics. So again, we're going to be playing from this E position of this E shape all the way down to this A shape and play in our pentatonic box right here. So this is going to how this is how it will sound. A 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, a lot of this stuff is descending in the scale. So we're just working down E with the G sharp in the bass, and then from the first course we talked about how you can just move this shape down a whole step, and then we've got our E like normal, then with the D in the bass, and then A with the third in the bass. And now our pentatonic, it's kind of the same idea, right? Up an octave. So F sharp to A, or the 6 to the 1, and then that's F sharp, E, C sharp. And then C sharp, E, C sharp, B, A. Or, and that's something that is of note with his pentatonic use at the end of phrases. He typically will try and mirror his first part of the statement. So, I'm sorry, right? 3 and 4 and 1, 3 and 4 and 1. So that's something that you could play just to make it more melodic and use that idea. So from the A, that would be another variation. Right? Kind of mirroring, just changing the rhythm a little bit. And one more. So that's going above and back down. So this whole thing using example 7 in phrase pentatonics. We've got a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to take some of these ideas and put them into the standard San Antonio Rose. Check out section 2.